panel discussion of the day before the Best of KBIS Awards is another incredibly important session from the sustainability track powered by Moen. Let's watch this amazing video by Moen.
Water, the element with the power to shape our planet and create so much of its beauty. Moen has grown to become the #1 faucet brand in America, serving more than 1.5 trillion gallons of water per year in the US alone. That's why we don't consider ourselves a faucet company, but a global water experience company. Water designs our life. Who designs for water?
Here to introduce this session and speak on behalf of Moen is Adam Barger, Senior Director, Global Brand Marketing, Moen. Welcome, Adam.
Good afternoon. It's great to be here at KBIS 2024, and Moen is thrilled to sponsor the sustainability track for Next Stage, as caring for our planet is core to who we are at Moen. This panel's topic focuses on water conservation, challenges facing water today, and insights into the pivotal role that water plays in the smart home innovation. And for us at Moen, we're thrilled because we see ourselves more than a faucet company, and really a water experience company that happens to make faucets. This means we're committed by designing and engineering products that enhance daily interactions with water, while also making sure that we make the right choices for our planet too. In fact, in 2020, we announced a new sustainability commitment called Mission Moen. Mission Moen is our pledge to conserve and protect the world's most precious natural resource while helping people enjoy it even more. By 2030, we pledge to save 1 trillion gallons of water through guiding principles of innovation. Along the way, we plan to repurpose 2,000 tons of ocean plastic through product design and packaging innovations. We're proud to say we're well on our way to achieving these goals. We've saved over 232 billion gallons of water to date, and plus repurposed 637 tons of ocean plastics. One of the ways we're able to work towards Mission Moen and our goals is through the Flow Smart Water Monitor and Shutoff. This device constantly monitors the water flow in your home and sends alerts if it detects any potential leaks or issues, even as small as a drop per minute. Additionally, it can be automatically shut off the water to prevent minor leaks from turning into major problems. In fact, its leak detection capabilities are so powerful the device has been shown to reduce over 90% of annual household water waste. As I wrap up, I invite you to visit our booth to see the Flow Smart Water Monitor and Shutoff and many other of Moen's water-saving products. We'd love to show you how we continue to innovate to create more beautiful experiences with water every day. Today, we have an esteemed panel of experts to dive deep into this topic. Steering the conversation is Sara Gutterman, the CEO of GreenBuilder Media, and joining us on stage is our very own Marc-Hans Richer, Chief Marketing Officer and General Manager of Direct Commerce at Moen, Christoph Lohr, Vice President of Technical Services and Research at IAPMO, and Ginger Rabe, CEO and Principal Designer at Ginger Rabe Designs. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. How you doing today? Good? Can I hear something?
Rousing.
Rousing, right. End of the second day of the show. Only one more day. So I'm Sara Gutterman. I am the CEO of GreenBuilder Media, and I have to say I am so excited to be here today, partly to participate with these wonderful panelists in a discussion about water, because water is the most urgent issue of our moment. We've kind of already solved for energy, but water we really, really need to solve for. And so companies like Moen, entities like IAPMO, designers like Ginger are providing solutions. So this is a really wonderful topic. I'm really happy that you're here, and I'm glad that I get to participate. I'm going to start with just a little bit of context. You didn't come to hear me speak, but I am going to take the opportunity, since I have the mic, and share a little bit, Nora, I'll share a little bit of market insight and intelligence from GreenBuilder Media's Market Insights Division Cognition Smart Data about why water is such an urgent and important topic, just to provide some data points about what we think we know. So just to start off, first and foremost, when we ask our consumer audience, now keep in mind, our consumer audience is comprised of early adopter and first mover homeowners and aspiring homeowners, the majority of whom now are millennials and older Gen Zs. So when we ask them what their top global risk of primary concern is, it is at this point failure to mitigate the impacts of climate change. Now you can see on here that water is a little bit further down. I wish that water was higher, and this particular survey question was asked probably about 8 months ago, so you can see COVID has probably mitigated and been reduced a little bit, but clearly this is top of mind for younger generations, and particularly for those early adopter and first movers. But when we ask what our consumer audience thinks will be most impacted by climate change, it's water availability and then food as well. And so clearly, again, this shows that this is top of mind. And it's particularly important because if we look at migration patterns in the US, we're seeing that people are moving from less water stressed to more water stressed areas. And so thinking about water solutions in our homes, whether that has to do with water quality or quantity, is becoming paramount importance. And then also, we can see that our consumer audience is telling us that they are absolutely facing water quality and quantity or availability, or both, challenges in their area. Just a couple more data points. You can see that the younger the generation is, the more they are willing to invest in water innovations if those innovations will increase the total value of homeownership over time. And we can see that our consumer audience says that they will invest in things like low flow plumbing fixtures, leak detection, and water management solutions in order to solve for water issues. So the last data point I have is that when we ask our full audience, not just the younger generations, they tell us that they believe that water innovations will be the primary type of product solution that will be impacted by the increase in ESG, or environmental, social, and governance. Hopefully you all have heard about that, the interest in ESG. So again, lots of opportunity for water innovation. So I'm going to stop there, and let's go ahead and get started with our panel. Joining me today, as you heard, is Mark Hans, Christoph, and Ginger. And I think what we'll do is let's go ahead and start, Mark Hans, with you. And if you could just do an introduction a brief introduction of yourself.
All right, Sarah, I will do that. Thank you. We're going to keep the energy high. It's been a long day. You get to sit down. This is nice. Get off your feet. My name is Mark Hans Richer. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Moen, but also across all of Fortune Brands, Innovations brands in the home space, both at KBIS and IBS. So very happy to be here and speak on behalf of Moen today.
My name is Christoph Lohr. I am also I'm with IAPMO. That stands for the International Association of Plumbing Mechanical Officials, which is a mouthful, so we'll stick with IAPMO. My role is Vice President of Technical Services and Research, and I head up a portion of IAPMO that deals with education, speaking, outreach, and research, especially in the topic of water and sanitation.
And I'm Ginger Rabe. I own Ginger Rabe Designs. We're a design build firm in Carlsbad, California, and we build homes from the ground up and do sustainability. I also am a professor at 2 colleges and tie all of this in, so this is a great topic because we do talk about this quite often.
Thank you all. Christoph, let's start with a question for you. We're starting to see water-related codes, regulations, and requirements. So for example, we're seeing some municipalities requiring net zero water plans from builders and developers when they go in to get their permits. And I know that, for example, we've participated in some demonstration projects where communities have not received permits because of the water impact. So can you talk a little bit about the changing regulatory environment and particular codes that you're following that are impacting the water criteria and specification process for homes?
I'd be happy to, Sarah. So as you're looking behind us, I think some of the looped slides, you'll see this one called plumbing resiliency. And this is a term we coined at IAPMO because water is more than just surviving a hurricane. Plumbing is more than just surviving a hurricane or earthquake. There's a lot of different facets and a lot of stressors in terms of our plumbing systems here in the US today and around the world. You look at from a sustainability standpoint, I come from Arizona, I live in Phoenix, and we just had a moratorium issued by the governor that is going to prohibit new building of homes and developments in areas that relied on groundwater. Now, areas that are being fed by river water is still able to develop, but it's limiting in places where we can build homes. You look at something like that what happened in people's residences in Flint, Michigan. I grew up in Michigan, and you had an issue where lead was let into the water from the old infrastructure. And you look in the US today, I mean, right now the latest study from the American Society of Civil Engineers estimates that every 2 minutes there's a water main break in the US. We have an infrastructure that is in dire need of replacement. But not only that, we're all humans, and humans on average can only survive 3 days without water. Sanitation is a critical part of that too with our sewer systems. And so you look at the world population, anywhere between 2 to 4 billion people don't have access to water or sanitation. And even here in the US, it's probably about 2 million people that don't have access to water and sanitation. So all those things combine, and we have to find ways to not have these concepts battle. And so from a code and regulatory standpoint, it's very vital that we look at developing frameworks that promote not only water sustainability, but also continuing safety. Making sure that there's access and affordability, that you're not gold plating a system to such a point that people can't get into it. And so, when we look at codes and standards, at IAPMO we developed the Uniform Plumbing Code. We also have another standard called the Water Efficiency and Sanitation Standard. And these standards are being used from coast to coast, everywhere from California to North Georgia to Maine, everywhere in between, different cities and municipalities like Houston. And so, the emphasis of these is always to try to find ways, obviously safety is paramount when it comes to water and sanitation, but we also need to make sure that we're looking from a regulatory standpoint of making sure that sustainability is of concern, and then also obviously access, and then just the sudden disaster that we have to worry about.
Thank you, Christoph. Some of those numbers are pretty mind-boggling. So Mark Hans, over to you. So as I mentioned, I truly believe that water is the most urgent challenge that we need to solve for right now, but fortunately, we can solve for it through innovation. So can you talk a little bit about some of the innovations that you're tracking and how those innovations can help solve for our water challenges, both availability and quality at scale, and also how they play into the homeowner or consumer water experience?
Wow, that's a lot, Sarah. Thank you. Before we talk about the solutions, let's also dimensionalize the problem maybe a little bit more. Let's also be a little bit real. There's been things in technologies, innovations that have been meaning to solve some of these water problems, like shower restrictors. Well, people don't like those kinds of showers, and so they rip those restrictors out. And so you don't actually get the savings because human beings want to have a good experience with water, and they don't like regulations that keep them from those experiences with water. So we can talk about regulations all day long. We're all human beings, as you said. We're going to find ways around that, and it's not really going to solve the problem all that much. When it comes to having a bad experience with water, there's a lot of water waste that happens just through thoughtlessness that doesn't affect you at all. According to the EPA, 1 trillion gallons of water in just the United States is wasted every year. But it's not because of people being dumb, it's because of technology being dumb. Most of that water is actually loose toilet flappers. No one is having a worse water experience by having a loose toilet flapper with 1 trillion gallons of water going down the drain that you're paying for that you're getting no benefit from. There's a lot of leaks in your home like that, irrigation leaks, all kinds of things that are just thoughtless water waste that has no impact on your experience of water at all. So if we give them information and we give them control, and we happen to have a product that helps you do that, Flow by Moen Smart Water Shutoff. Not only does it help, it goes on your main, so it can read all of the water signatures in your home, and you can see where the toilet is leaking, and then take some action around it. You know, thoughtless waste eliminated. You can see if your irrigation is running, you know, longer than it should, or in places where, again, you might just have in a preset and it just runs and it runs and runs, even if you have a water sensor. And of course, it prevents water damage like broken pipes and things like that too, which are really bad experiences with water that you don't want to suffer. But from a preservation perspective, it gives people information so that they can take action. And with better information and better ability to take action, simply, that is the biggest way that we can get a lot of leverage on massive amounts of water waste going on in the United States today.
Thank you so much for that insight. Appreciate it. Ginger, let's hear from you. Tell us about some of the homeowner and consumer trends that you're seeing with respect to water quality and availability. And are the homeowners and consumers that you're working with, are they even cognizant of water issues?
Well, some are cognizant and some are not aware of it. So a lot of the trends that we use, going off of what you're both saying, we're trying to figure out how to not waste water. So in California, we're very restricted to how much water, not that we use, but it goes down the drain. That's where our water flow mainly comes from. So a lot of what we're using is smart shower systems or smart faucets. So like in a shower system we were talking about, they have now where they can program them to heat up before you use them, and you're not throwing down 20 gallons per every 2 minutes or a minute down the drain. So we're really looking at those type of trends. Outside, we're looking at water catchment systems. So our clients are kind of aware, but they're kind of not. They just, like you said, they like what they like, and they like things just to look pretty. It's up to us and our job to educate them on what they need to use. And so we really talk about why you need that, like the faucets that turn on and off. They're great. My mom, God forbid this woman ever turns a faucet off, and we put in her house a faucet that you can turn on. You turn it on. It's all touchless. You wave it. You do all that. After about a minute or two, it turns itself off. And she comes over and she wonders why there's no water. But this is what we have to do to our clients and consumers, because they don't understand that you just can't throw water down a drain anymore. We need to make sure that it's being used correctly. So a lot of the trends that we're using is smart technology, the toilets that are flushable and which way you can flush them, either one or two, how you're going to use it, how the water will go down, how smart showers go on, restrictors, all of those things. And we do use leak detection a lot, as well as in our designs, because of floods. We have so many floods that clients don't even know about for years. So.
Thanks, Ginger. Mark Hans, can you weigh in on this topic as you are thinking about and working with your team on marketing and messaging development, on product development? Can you talk about how you reconcile design trends with consumer demand and the urgent need for solving our water challenges in terms of, again, both conservation as well as quality?
Yeah. Well, I can build on what Ginger was saying, because I think she kind of stole my answer to that one. It's not like I knew the questions ahead of time. But it's true that what you said, you know, that we got to think clearly about what the consumer's really asking us for. They're not asking us for conservation. They'll take conservation if they can get the other needs met too. So it needs to look good, it needs to perform well, I need to have a good experience, and if you can give me conservation too, fantastic. But they really don't want to go conservation before the first two. They need to have all three met in order for them to accept the conservation. So that's a design challenge. But taking simple behaviors in a really good looking shower that has great performance, but a shower that's technologically enabled so it will heat itself up to a temperature and then stop before you get in it. Because again, that's more thoughtless waste. It's someone who turns on the shower, waits for it to get to a certain temperature, they go off and do something else in their closet, and every moment after that gets to that 101 degrees or whatever it is that you want, it's just water running down the drain for no good reason, and you're just costing yourself time and money and all kinds of bad stuff for the planet. But that's stupid waste. We can inform them and give them access to better controls that takes that waste away, and still have a great looking shower and a great shower experience at the same time.
Thank you. Christoph, let's switch gears a little bit. And can you talk a little bit about right sizing of systems, maybe structured plumbing, but then also kind of evolving product standards and specifications that address water conservation?
Definitely, and I think Mark brought up a great point a little bit ago where he talked about how the regulatory environment, you don't want to be too onerous, right? And really when you look at, especially coming as an engineering consultant, somebody that worked under architects on a lot of different buildings, the plumbing codes were almost always, for me as a structure, especially when you start getting standards for products, as you mentioned, it's almost like an easier way to adopt new technologies. And what you mentioned, Sarah, I'll kind of answer the back end first because you mentioned that as well, Mark, which is, there's a standard now for that type of device, and that's one that it helps bring awareness to the industry, also helps make sure performance is standardized across the industry. And the technical term is behavioral water waste. It's the water that goes down the drain before you step into the shower while you're waiting for it to heat up. That's wasted water. You're totally right. And so we definitely want to make sure that standards like that for products. The one we use is IGC 244 is a specific number for it. Not that I expect any of you to be quizzed on that later, but those are the types of things that help bring awareness and education and adoption. The question, the first part of the question you asked, Sarah, was structural water waste, which is the oversizing of piping supplying the fixtures. So even if you reduce, the flow rate at a fixture, especially like a shower, let's say, you still need that water that's cooled off overnight in the pipe, in that hot water pipe, to be displaced by water from the water heater. And that's where right sizing really has the potential to reduce water waste and energy waste, and also has a potential for improving water quality, but also affordability. One of the things we developed at IAPMO, one of those codes and standards, is an option for designers to use and builders to use in their homes when they're building and designing them, which looked at basically a method that was 80 years old. I mean, we've been basically sizing plumbing systems in residential and commercial buildings utilizing the Hunter's curve, which is an 80-year-old methodology. About a decade ago, IAPMO, we started an initiative, and in 2018 we released the water demand calculator, which is the first time in 80 years we've looked at peak flow rate sizing. And that's peak flow and pressure drop are the two main measures for sizing a pipe. And what we found was the old methodology basically assumed that every plumbing fixture in every building was assumed to have lines behind it like a sports stadium at halftime. Once we got actual real-world data, we found out that that wasn't the case, not even during the Super Bowl in your home. I was going to say a few weeks ago if anybody was watching that. And so what that results in is dramatic savings, especially even in neighborhoods for water systems. In an individual home, there's some potential there. And it's something that's as easy as flushing the toilet, and you start seeing water savings. You don't even have to think about it because you're eliminating some of that waste you were talking about, Mark-Hans. And that to me is really that next iteration. And not only that though, you're saving dollars on the construction site when you're building. Because we found, as we did some research on this, there was pipe saving or cost and materials of pipe. And so now that's potential savings that you can either reinvest into somewhere else in the home. I think as a plumbing engineer, I know most people don't want to necessarily pay for the most expensive plumbing system. What's behind the wall they don't see. They want to look at what they're touching and seeing. So there's opportunities to take those savings of dollars and put them towards something that's visible, or from an affordability standpoint, depending on what you're doing. One of the previous speakers up here was talking about trying to find ways to make more affordable housing. There's an opportunity even there. So that's really this next wave is looking at devices like you said, Mark-Hans. It's something where the consumer doesn't have to think about it. That structural and behavioral water waste is something that is eliminating that and leaks. I mean, those are the next opportunities out there in terms of what we can do to conserve water.
Interesting how some of the most intuitive things can save money and resources and make the homeowner experience more efficient and comfortable. So let's switch gears again, Mark-Hans. Effective communication is pivotal to behavioral change. So can you please share with us some examples of effective customer messaging with respect to water conservation that you are seeing in your role at Fortune Brands and specifically at Moen?
Yeah, well, it's another human insight, which is that people don't want to be scolded. They don't want to be told they're bad for using water. They don't want a company preaching at them about it. So we do want to raise the issue because, frankly, we provide solutions to the issue that allow them to save but not have to sacrifice. So we need to communicate that in a friendly way, in a way that they can accept without feeling like, why are you wagging your finger at me? So We don't have any examples, but Adam did show some earlier today for Mission Moen, which is our focus in sustainability. And we did a really great ad recently. It's relevant for locally here, where it was a future ad, a tourist ad for the future to visit Mead Canyon. How, just come down and see Mead Canyon, which of course is the ultimate example of when all the water is out, that's what you're going to be visiting. So it's just, a little bit of a smile just to help people understand that there's a real issue here that maybe you should care about, and then introduce the opportunity to save but not sacrifice through Moen products or other products that they might choose. So for us, the communication needs to be at the right level so people can accept it, because if you just preach to them, people they don't want that. And we don't want to be the preachy brand. We want to be the brand that accepts, helps you understand an issue and then provides a solution to it.
Ginger, can you weigh in on this? Do you scold your clients?
Yeah, I kind of do.
Maybe that's a better approach. I don't know. Maybe
can,
we're wrong.
I mean.
Well, like if they all want what they want, right? So they want to use 2 washers. So I have a client that has 2 washers, and there's 2 of them. I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, well, I run them both at the same time, and I run both my dishwashers, and I run this, and I run that. They just want to do what they want to do. So I kind of do. There's lots of education that comes in with this, which is why I travel around and learn about all these things. But I do have to kind of tell my clients yes and tell them no, and show them why. I think statistics really kind of help out with that as well. So that's a lot of what we have to do. But since we do build it, we know from the beginning of what we're doing and why we're doing it. So we don't just have to design it and show them all the pretty things. We actually explain it and why we have to build it in and why we need to put it in and how they can save money. So that's a lot of what we do.
Thanks, Ginger. All right, Christoph, let's shift gears again. There have been a plethora of studies recently that frighten the heck out of me, talking about contaminants, PFAS, microplastics in our water, in bottled water, in drinking water, in municipality water. How the heck can we access safe and healthy drinking water?
Well, I got good news for you, Sarah, is there is a solution.
Talk to me.
So just to put it in context first, so you're totally right. Right now, obviously, I would say even in the last 10 years, I mentioned at the start of our conversation here, Flint, Michigan, right? That was a very noticeable, very noteworthy example of water system failure, right? And we also are hearing these things like PFAS and other contaminants in our water that really, it kind of is a steady drumbeat. But then you mentioned microplastics, and that's a good one to mention here too, is when you look at bottled water, now they're finding studies that the average bottled water that we all carry around here has anywhere between 100 to 200,000 micro and nanoplastics in it, fragments in there. And so there's a lot of questions now surrounding, well, what do we do? Like, it seems like we can't do bottled water, what's coming out of our tap, what do we do? And this is where the way I think about it kind of comes back to my experience as a mechanical engineer doing plumbing systems, and I did a lot of laboratory design. And when you do laboratory design, you make a certain quality of water and then you send it out to different lab benches, and then sometimes at the lab benches they might have a specific need that needs to be a little bit more clean, and so you go through that process to clean it up for its intended purpose. And I think that's the real opportunity here. Obviously there's a cost argument. You look at a bottle of water, and compare it what's coming out of your tap, and you're paying 2,000 times more for that bottle of water compared to what comes out of your tap. But the concern is still there. So what do? So the solution is, this is where you take that lab approach and you clean the water at the intended source, or for its intended use. So for myself, I use often carbon filtration. Carbon filters have a tendency, depending which type, to take out a lot of contaminants like PFAS. Some of the carbon filters can capture some lead. Some of them can take out disinfectant byproducts, which are known carcinogens, or chlorine, or stuff that you're tasting as chlorine. And in all honesty, the filtration mechanisms that we have there, they're what nature had been doing. All the water on the Earth is the same water that's been here since the beginning, other than the one in the space station. And they recycle that one on the space station. So we just took nature's methods and we've used them in technology nowadays. And so there's opportunities. If you're worried about sediment, there's ways to use micron filters to remove that floating sediment in there. It's the same processes, just it's a human mechanism as opposed to nature's mechanism. And so when you look at, kind of going back to that point before, standards, there's testing standards that are done to making sure that these filters work the way they're intended. If you want to get rid of the sediment in there, getting a filter that complies with NSF 42, that's one that can make sure to get out those floaters. If you're worried more about something like PFAS, or you want a granular activated carbon filter to take out disinfectant byproducts, look at NSF 53, NSF 42 as well, kind of covers that. If you're worried and you want to take it to that next level, and you want to go to RO systems and really purify that water, their RO systems are a little less sustainable in general because you reject a lot of water to the drain. However, even there's opportunities to have more sustainable RO systems. ASSE 1086 is a new standard that came out that has minimum efficiency requirements on top of the performance requirements. And so we're making progress, I think, as an industry. It's really showing this progress of getting the right water quality at the end result, and that's a really good way to make sure that the end user has something that works for them, that is healthy, and it doesn't have a negative health effect on them.
Mark Hans, can you chime in about this topic and just...
I can chime.
Chime on.
Yeah. All right. So the filtration is the same problem that I was talking about before, about how do you make things simple so that they can be accessible and be usable. And there's lots of ways of filtering your water. There's, Brita filters and things. That's great. But you need to make it easily. Now, I'm a Gen X guy, so I was raised drinking water out of the hose, right?
Damn.
So I was raised on hose water. So did I care? I don't know. It probably affected me in some way that I still don't understand. So I'm glad we have better awareness now than we had then, although that was kind of fun, I guess, at the time. But even filtration on your kitchen countertop, it's like two different fixtures, right? Okay, there's the filtration, then there's the pull down and whatever, and that's complicated. You don't want things to be complicated. You need simplicity so people will use it. So one thing we've done at Moen is to do a retrofit under counter filtration that you can put into our pull downs. So you can put the filtered water into the pull down, and then every time you're using the pull down, you're getting filtered water, as opposed to something separate fixture. It's complex, extra cost. You don't want that. It's something that retrofits into our existing products. Just makes it easier to access, makes it better for everybody. You don't have to worry about are the kids really using the filtered water or not the filtered water. It's right there at the source. Use that, they're going to be good all the time. So we just want to make things simpler. We want to enable people with information, and then that will, not save the world, but it will get us progressively farther towards a better place where everyone's a little healthier and hopefully a little happier.
Fantastic, thank you. So we all know that knowledge is power. So Mark Hans, then Christoph, then Ginger, can you each talk about how you think that we can increase awareness about our water challenges and the opportunities?
Well, I guess these forums are good starts. I think the problem with awareness is awareness, but also then the enablement. Because awareness without the ability to do anything about it is just depressing. It's like you're aware that there's other problems, but I can't do anything about it. So now I'm now just another thing in the world that I can't do anything about, and it makes me feel bad. So awareness is one thing, but you got to enable. We gotta let people have information, the ability to act on it. So if our job is successful, it's helping people see where they have an opportunity to save without sacrificing, and then enabling that through products and services that enable them to do that. Again, it won't change everything overnight, but it's progress towards a much better place where standards then take on a life of their own. You have the benefit of social reinforcement where you see your friend or your neighbor or your family, they've done that, and you're like, oh, okay, I'll do that too. And over time, it turns into an entire movement that people understand. It becomes normal. We're not yet there, but I think we are on our way there, and it's pretty encouraging.
I would agree with Mark, and I think this forum, you all being here, that's the first step in becoming water ambassadors and making this a topic that is talked about. But I think, Mark, you bring up a great point. We have to simplify it down, and we also need to go past just talking about it and finding ways to implement it. And I think, Ginger, you talked about it too, like educating your clients. And I think it goes from a large scale like something like this, where we're learning and educating each other and having these conversations, all the way to Ginger's level, right there with the client, and having that conversation about, here's maybe what you want to do, here's what you not want to do. And that's really that breadth of implementation. Mark and Moen, you guys taking the strides to try to find ways to make products that meet that need through that innovation. I mean, it goes from one end, from the big picture, all the way down to the individual conference room when you're talking with your client. I think all the way throughout is what's really needed.
Yeah, I feel the same way. It's all about education and showing your clients what they can do. Like you talked about water filtration. It's also the ease. How easy and convenient is it? If it's hard, nobody's going to do it. If it's easy, they are going to do it. Like I have a client, she's a biochemist, and she moved from far away to now California, and she drank out of the tap. And once I educated her of what was in our water and why it's in our water, she quickly was like, please buy me a water filtration system and a whole house system. And oh my gosh, I can't believe I've been drinking out of the tap. We bought her a full filtration water, one of the Moens, and when we got her that and showed her how easy it was to do the under counter and all that, it's just mainly about education. There's a million ways too, especially if you use home water filtration instead of bottled water. One-use plastic goes from 50% to about 35%. So again, it's just all about education and showing them and taking, like I take my clients physically, or if I go to, like if I went to Moen and I have gone there into the plant and learned about everything, I come back and reverberate that. And I think that is our best force of showing what you can do and how you can do it. You can say something all day long, but again, it's convenience. What will work in my house for my family, and what can I do to make things easy? But again, it's all about education. They're looking for us to be the experts. If you can't be the expert, why am I going to listen to you? So that's a lot of what we need to do. And they want it to be aesthetically pleasing. So we have lots of challenges, but it's very easy to do, again, with education.
Thank you. So I have one last question before we close out this riveting discussion and open it up to audience questions. And Ginger, let's start with you, and then we'll come back this way.
Okay.
What are your top tips, tricks, and hacks for the residential designers in our audience? 3 sentences or less.
In water or just in general?
Let's stick with water.
Okay. 3 tips and tricks. I would say, for the client, basically take them and show them. If you can find a place that actually has water that flows, for us in California, it's different. Across the country, you all get to actually take a real shower. We just get to dream about it. But I would say go and show how the water flows, what you can do, how it can benefit the client and the environment for them, as well as what their carbon footprint is. Usually they don't know what that means, so you can explain that to them. I would just show them how you can use water efficiently and safely and costly.
I would say look for standards listing. It's the way that kind of helps make sure everyone's playing on the same set of rules. And then I would also say, when it comes to water conservation, we can't sacrifice performance. So it's vital that, moving forward when we're giving solutions, that those solutions have the potential to positively impact sustainability without sacrificing performance or safety.
Yeah, I'd say just ask for the order. Just if you can be the magician to say, what would you think if I gave you a great water experience and a cleaner water experience, and you didn't have to sacrifice anything other than maybe the cost of the system, but you're going to have a much better life and experience and a safer one? They're going to go, yes, please. But you got to ask for it. Because if you don't ask for it, they'll just go with the first 2, they're not going to go with the third. But if you give them all 3 choices, they may actually say yes. And you get to be the superhero, and you get a better business as well. So that's good for everybody. And so I'd say just ask for the order.
Wonderful, great advice. All right, your turn. Who's got questions? Raise your hands. Please direct your questions to specific panelists.
Water can be fun. You can ask a question, like, remember the slip-and slides? Like, I know you have to have like one question.
Yeah, I drank from a hose too, by the way.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Remember you ran
and
up
I
and
liked
just
it.
like,
I
how
liked
much
it
can
very
I drink
much.
out of this hose?
Yeah.
Thank you. I have a question for Mark Hans. As a designer who has sold Moen products in the past, any thoughts on offering gray water solutions, since clients potentially can see a savings in their home irrigation where they may have other limitations? Any thoughts on Moen coming out with a way to utilize gray water and create products that we can sell to customers to do that?
That's a great question, a great insight as well. That is definitely on the cutting edge of where maybe regulations will go in the future. Those systems are hard to retrofit. You kind of have to build them into the house to begin with, because it's so complex and so costly to retrofit that stuff. that very few people will be willing to take on the expense and the complexity and ripping up their beautiful, master bath or whatever they've got. So I think standards will help in that, but it is a simple, ultimately, if you build it in, it's a simple and efficient and effective solution to some of this water, because again, it's more thoughtless use of water for, it's like throwing the plastic bottle in the trash. You're flushing one-use water, back into the ecosystem and then losing things and burning energy to do that. It's just, there's all kinds of bad things. So gray water is a wonderful solution, but it's very difficult to do in the aftermarket. You really probably need to do it at the builder phase. Yeah.
And you do use a lot of gray water in landscaping. That is one way you could use it, but it's hard, like you said, to retrofit it into the actual house, because we have to do it in the very beginning of either remodeling or building. So yeah, it would be great eventually, but it's going on the codes and standards.
But there are systems that are definitely emerging, and we've looked closely at them to see where this is evolving to, and the concept is absolutely right. The solution to it is still a little more complex than it should be probably for mass adoption.
Yeah, we actually at IATMO, we have a stretch code that I mentioned before, We Stand, and it's in there. We have a full chapter on on-site reuse, and so we're seeing adoptions of that standard, starting to come up. It's a stretch code because it's addressing a new technology, and we have also a specific standard for those systems. So, but your point's right on again. It's early phases, so we're gonna think in the next 5-10 years we're gonna see that market will probably be one that's going to be worth watching as potential opportunity.
Great question.
Yeah, great question.
And one of the other things that is preventing, I think, widespread adoption of gray water systems is actually codes and regulations. I know we tried to put gray water into a house in LA. This was a handful of years ago, and so some of the codes may have changed by now, but we couldn't do it because of antiquated codes and regulations. So I know that there's been a big effort by some of the gray water companies like Grader to go municipality by municipality to get those codes and regulations changed, and it's a tremendous amount of work.
Yeah, you have lots of different agencies that are working on that are touching that system if you put it in, and that's a lot of the red tape that needs to kind of get unraveled as we try to streamline it.
Hi, my name is Henry. I own a hotel in Banff area, the Rocky Mountain, Canada, right? Oh. So we are in the process of tear down all the cabins into a new hotel, right? But my question is, any technology or solution for rainwater to reuse? Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. We're talking about recirculation of water. So it's like, how do you capture that water to then put it back into either laundry, dishwasher, outside? So it's just looking at your county code or what they allow. Like you were saying in LA, the same thing. We can't use certain water in certain places. So
yeah, strangely enough, there's some places that will tell you that that's not allowed, that there's regulations against capturing your own rainwater in your own atmosphere above your own house to use because of antiquated regulations. And there's not a great technological solution for that yet either, Henry, unfortunately. I mean, you can imagine smart rain barrels in the future or things that would capture water and reuse it for small irrigation projects or things. It's not a hugely scalable solution, but atmospheric water generation, though, I think is potentially one of those things that will help water, starved communities, because the water is in the air and there are technologies to extract it. Israel has a lot of companies that have brought those technologies forward. There's some in the United States as well. And we've looked at some of those and learned some partnerships as well, because again, it's a way of saving the sort of industrial processing of water and helps provide it locally to people that might really need it and don't want to take things out of the aquifers, which is even an issue in things like, we think of water as being a Southwest issue, but even in the Northeast, if anyone read some of the news recently, there's, East Coast is sinking some centimeters a year because they're over pumping water out of the aquifers. And so they're literally sinking 1 or 2 centimeters a year because the water underneath the ground is creating holes, which is creating vacuums, which is creating sinking. So it's not just a hot weather place. We have to find ways to source water that are not just coming from out of the ground in order to satisfy our needs.
Mm-hmm. I agree. The smartest rainwater harvesting system that I've seen is collection in barrels or a cistern with drip irrigation and some smart controls. And I also agree, and I'm glad you brought up the atmospheric generators, because I think that those are fascinating. They basically harvest water out of the air. They look like a solar panel, and they harvest water out of the air for potable water applications.
We're doing that, a project in Carlsbad. We're doing that with the rain harvesting and that. And there's a lot for us to get through the city when we put it in, because we have a water table in Carlsbad, and we're very close to it. And you hit that table, you sink, right? But everybody wants to capture water, and they want to use it. They have a vineyard, and they're trying to water it. And we are looking at that system now, and it's great. But we are getting regulated about how much, where we can put it. So there is just a lot. Water is kind of new, but it's been the oldest thing we've had in our entire life. But it's kind of a new concept or vision. So there's a lot of little things to get through, I think, now. Yeah.
All right, we have time for one more question. Who's the lucky audience member? Quick.
David, ask a question. No?
Brave soul.
Brave soul.
I'm not sure if this will be a Christoph or a Ginger, maybe both directed question, but how do you broach the topic, or when in the work process? I try to be transparent with my clients when they tell me the age of their home. I live in Denver, Colorado, and many of the pipes have the potential to be leaking lead based on the age of the home. And I know in my head, like, we might need to test the water, but I'm wondering when in the process do you kind of broach that topic, and how do you decide what factors influence the recommendations you make?
Well,
Why don't you go first,
I'll say,
Anna?
and then you give the really good answer after. Okay, so I know for us it's regulated about 1% or so that's allowed in there. I would honestly bring it up to your clients from the beginning.
Yeah.
No surprises are the best answer and the best way to handle anything. So if you're gonna surprise them 4 months into this, they're not gonna be very happy with you. Bring it up in the beginning, come up with a solution and a challenge that you have to do, and how would you come across, and how would you take care of that? And in Denver, I know you guys, your minerals are a lot harder than ours, so they probably eat through the pipes faster. So that's something I would do some research and figure that out. But have a conversation in the beginning, either add a filtration or repipe the house, which is not fun for anybody. It's very costly, so find maybe some solutions to do that. And that's where you can reach out, and they'll explain to you, like, these are the things you could do. And then I know he's gonna have a way better answer than I do.
No, I thought that was excellent, Ginger. That was a great answer. And it's honestly that I would completely agree with you. I think that, especially when it comes to water quality, I think it's a topic, even in commercial buildings, it's a topic that most mechanical engineers and plumbing engineers haven't really dealt with. And so Ginger brings up a really good point. The earlier, the better. And so as soon as you see that as a potential item that you need to discuss with them, bring it up, because that gives you the most flexibility throughout the design process to come up with different solutions. And working with manufacturers like Moen, and having their input on filtration or pipe replacement, or other solutions out there. If you can get a good, better, best early in the process, that gives your client ultimately more flexibility throughout design. And I would do the exact same thing. Bring it up early, give them a couple solutions. You don't want to overwhelm them, but
Yeah.
and then let them
I'm fine.
let them make a decision.
Honesty is the best. Honesty is always the best when you're doing anything like this, because big problems can be fixed quickly, but big problems can become bigger problems if you're not upfront about them,
I guess
especially with stuff
by
like
honesty, she doesn't mean you got lead in your water and everyone's going to die if you drink
No.
it. That's not, you don't want to fear monger either, right? So I think having a reasonable understanding of the real issue, so that you can give them the appropriate solution, is important to maintain your trust with your client, of course, as well.
Yep.
Wonderful. Well, Mark Hans, Christoph, Ginger, thank you so much for your thoughts and for your insights. Thank you to Adam and to the Moen team for sponsoring this panel. And thank you all for being in attendance. It's very important that we have this conversation about our water challenges and also our water opportunities. So thank you all so much for being here. And I'm sure that there is some place to get beer and wine now. So.
Made from water.